All right, let's go. Let's bring on the legend, Kevin Harlan, Westwood One's own. He'll be calling the Super Bowl for a 16th consecutive year in just a couple of weeks from now. NFL on CBS for decades, covering the NBA throughout multiple networks and now on Amazon Prime's coverage. He's going to be calling the battle for LA tonight, Lakers and Clippers. Kevin, it's Pat Boyle, Brad Evans. So pleased to have you with us, man. How you doing?
Hey, Pat, Brad, thank you. Congratulations on joining the Westwood One family. It's great to have you. And the Jesse Minter deal is pretty interesting because of the connections the Harbaugh family has to Baltimore. I really don't think the separation of John and Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, was managed in a bad way. I think both parties were probably looking for a change, a new voice. It's always good in someone's career to make that kind of move, especially in pro football. So with Jim being in L.A. and his connection, of course, with John, and both knowing the Baltimore franchise and direct Jesse there, who had been with Baltimore, as you just said, it makes total sense. We're seeing some defensive coaches getting hired for head coaching jobs, which is kind of interesting. McDonald was hired in Seattle last year, and look what he's done in 2 years. And now we've got Jesse Minter, a defensive-minded coach, getting hired in Baltimore. Don't know if it's a trend, but certainly something to take note of as teams look to turn the page and move on.
Yeah, I mean, great answer. That was going to be my first question for you, so I'm glad that you took the baton and you ran with it. By the way, it sounds a pinch me moment. I got chills hearing Kevin Harlan welcoming us to the Westwood One family. That is, it's awesome stuff. Before we get to the weekend, let's start back on Sunday. You were on the call for Westwood One for Bears and Rams. What a freaking game, and one of the greatest plays ever in a playoff game by a team who ended up losing. The Hail Camary, as I've been calling it, Caleb Williams to Cole Kmet on fourth down with a game on the line. Let's hear your call first, and then I'll ask you my question.
4th down and 4, 14 of the Rams. Shotgun snap, goes back 4-man rush. He's chased, he's flushed, he's all the way back to the 40. He's backpedaling and throws a pass into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Touchdown! Chicago has caught a touchdown pass with Cole Kmet open in the corner. If you hadn't seen it, you would not believe it. 18 seconds left. Pandemonium at Soldier Field.
If you would not have seen it, you would not believe it. Pandemonium at Soldier Field, an all-timer to the collection of Kevin Harlan's all-time calls. What's going through your mind as a broadcaster when you see that play unraveling? And then, also, what's going through your head as a football fan? Because sometimes it's hard to balance the two when you're doing your job. What was it like in that moment?
I can't think of a time, Pat, that I was just making sure that with the game coming down, as all broadcasters do, you want to make sure you just stay with the process you have for each play. And that usually can guide you through a weird play, and that was strange. I don't think I've seen a play like it. There have been multiple memorable plays, clearly, in NFL history. What made that so unique is that the kid, as we've seen now in replay, and most people have seen with their own eyes, was under incredible duress, and it looked like he was heaving it away. So when you have that kind of situation, you've got to make sure that you finish the play. You can't just lose concentration or where that ball may be headed. How he saw that kid in the corner of the end zone. Now Kmet's a big target. We get that. But Loveland was out. Kmet became the primary focus at tight end. And for him to be that open and for the quarterback under that kind of pressure to see him as he's backpedaling with the snow and the cold and everything at stake was just so remarkable. That's the second time that I've heard it. I heard it going back to the hotel after the game. So that's the second time that I've heard it right there. And it just reinforced that when there's so much going on around you, and as a broadcaster, you try to make sure that you just stay with the pattern that you've tried to establish on every play so that when the big play happens, you're perhaps ready for it. And I don't know if that was as accurate a call as I could have given, but in the moment with the emotion and everything that was at stake, you just hope you can kind of at least capture what was going on. And the crowd went bananas, and clearly there was just disbelief. I talked to Mike Tirico shortly afterwards, and we both are just shaking our head like you don't see plays like that very often. Big game, small game, whatever it might be. So for that to happen when you're on the mic is really a real fortunate event. You just hope you do it justice, and clearly it was in a losing cause, but one of the more memorable plays of this past season.
Oh, well, Kevin, I'm a diehard Chicago Bears fan, and pandemonium, I think, perfectly summarized it because I was sprinting throughout my entire house in that moment. So I think you encapsulated it absolutely perfectly. Hey, maybe getting another memorable call this weekend because you're on the call in the Great Northwest for Rams and Seahawks. I'm curious, where do the Lumen Field Loonies rank in your loudest NFL crowd rankings? And do you recall at all the most ear-piercing game you've ever been on the call for, regardless of sport?
The Seattle crowd, Brad, is terrific. It's up there with Arrowhead. The one thing about the Chicago crowd, just to finish off that, is so many of those people had gloves on that all you kind of heard was a thud and the screaming. So it wasn't the sharp, crisp, crack of a clap that can, really pierce a cold night like we had in Chicago last week. So it was a lot of gloves, but it was loud, and they were screaming at the top of their lungs. Arrowhead is got the record supposedly with the decibel count, but Seattle is incredibly loud. There are some other ones. Denver can get very, very loud. Some of the new stadiums are engineered and configured, and Lumen is one of those up in Seattle. It is purposely configured the way it is to keep the noise in. And the ownership that built that stadium did that on purpose. And that is one of the reasons why it is so loud. And Arrowhead, they just got, 70,000 plus nuts that will just scream at anything, and they have. And they've had reason to scream because of the incredible, linking of successful season after successful season. Pittsburgh can get pretty loud. They've all got the feel, but Lumen has had the acoustical infrastructure to really make it loud. And everybody talks about, all the quarterbacks always talk about, what they've got to go through. The good thing for the Rams is they've got a quarterback that navigates that noise at least once a year. And now he's going to do it again. So Stafford is very used to what those, decibels are like, what the parameters of his offense to hear his cadence will have to endure. And that offense this week with Sean McVay clearly has been practicing all week long and are preparing themselves for what will be an incredibly loud environment. I don't think that will be the issue as much as just trying to run on that defense for the Rams, which they're going to have to do. And that will be a tough chore. They didn't do it as much and as well as they want to do at Soldier Field for a variety of reasons. But I do think they're going to have to do that up there in Seattle.
Yeah, it could be a big game for Kenneth Walker III, to say the least. Kevin, as someone who's covered college basketball for 20 years, and I'm only a stone's throw away from the University of Illinois campus in Champaign, I'm admittedly a college hoops junkie. Over your legendary career, you've given audiences plenty of on-air gems. So how does calling March Madness compare to calling NFL? And in your estimation, what makes the NCAA tournament so damn special and so extraordinarily compelling each year?
The tournament has just got so much unknown to it. Even the teams that are the number one seeds will fall. And because of the way college basketball is engineered now with NIL and the portal and players staying in school longer because the money's there and they can really stretch out a career and do it over several campuses. You're getting such a level playing field that there truly is a flip of the coin feel about who's going to win it and how they're going to win it and what they're going to have to endure to win it. So it's usually the hot team. It's the team that has been playing well as a team. You may see the individual thrive, but right now team basketball just seems to be the differential when you're talking about teams that advance and survive and make it, from one weekend to the next, to the teams that rely too much maybe on one player. A team usually has a pretty good feel for it, and they can negotiate the pressure of the tournament, the environment of those arenas, and just the festive feel that every game seems to have. We all have our thoughts on NIL and the portal and the hopscotching of these players from school to school, but at the end of the day, you're on a team for that season, and what you make of that season usually has to be connected with the tissue, with the players on that roster, and a coach that can quickly assemble that kind of a team, and a coach that can bring them together faster and point it in the right direction sooner, usually finds themselves in a pretty good position. But the fact that it's so wide open is what makes it great. A 4 can beat a 13. A 1 can beat a 16. Oh, a 16 can beat a 1. And these are the things that make it so enchanting, is that you've got, the favored team that comes in and a double-digit seed will nail them. And we'll then see a favored team that may get by one opponent, but they for whatever reason, can't get traction against a team that has a specific way of attacking with the one higher seed may do better. So it is so much of an even surface that you go into it, you really have no creditable idea of who's going to make that move and who's going to advance. As the tournament goes on, you begin to feel that a team is peaking at the right time, and sometimes it's health and the team peaking that are the two elements that you hang your hat on, in addition to being able to handle just the enormity of the tournament and what it means, and the legacies that are set, the legends that are carved, and all the different things that make that tournament so special. You do Rutgers, and so with good players what that can mean for a team and what they could possibly do in the postseason. It begins with the conference tournaments. It then goes right into the NCAA tournament, and for 4 weeks it becomes like just this free for all that you just cannot get enough of, and it becomes, for all of us that get a chance, are lucky enough to do it. You circle it on your calendar and you just embrace every moment.
That's a great answer. We are talking with the legend Kevin Harlan. Westwood won, of course. He'll be calling the Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. NFL on CBS, Turner Sports March Madness, and this year the NBA on Amazon Prime. Here on BetMGM tonight, he's Brad Evans. I'm Pat Boyle. This is Westwood One Sports. Kevin, not only are you calling the NFC title game this Sunday in Seattle, but as I mentioned, and as usual, you've got the whole enchilada. Once again, calling the Super Bowl for Westwood One Sports, which can be heard around the entire globe. I believe this is your 16th straight year calling it. You already broke the record for most consecutive Super Bowls commentated by any broadcaster in radio or television history. And so what is that kind of, that kind of consistency and just what does it mean to you to be able to do the Super Bowl every single year?
Well, you're nice to mention that, and I appreciate it. I'm so honored to be a part of the Westwood One crew that gets to broadcast this big game. And I really didn't know about the streak until about 2 or 3 years ago. And one of my buddies had dug it up, I think on, Wikipedia or Google or whatever, and they saw this, and with a little bit of work, some other people dug into it and found out that, that was indeed the case. And so I hold it about as close to my heart as any assignment that I get. I love the people I work with, and now you're a part of that family as well. So the longer you're with them, the more you'll appreciate them and how seriously they take it. And just the enormity of that broadcast, heard here and carried BBC and American Armed Forces Radio, the worldwide audience that takes it, and not everybody can be by a TV. but you can take the game with you in your car, if you're jogging, if you're whatever, and if you're working. And a lot of people are working overnight shifts. They're working with no access to TV, so they do get a chance to listen. And it means a lot. And from the very beginning of my career, much probably like yours, radio is like the purest form of broadcasting. It relies on everything that the medium has. It's voice, it's inflection, it's reporting, it's word usage, it's cadence. It's like all these things wrapped into one. On television, you've got the picture, and then you've got the analyst, and then you've got the replays and the graphics and all the different wizardry that happens in the technology of television. And then the play-by-play guy is probably down the ladder. Now, that's not to say there's not a skill and there's not a nuance to it, but on radio, you're responsible for everything. And I love the challenge that brings. And I grew up as a little boy wanting to be only in radio. TV just kind of happened. Radio has been the thing that has driven me. I love, even to this day, it's probably the most enjoyable, most satisfying thing that I do, because it's never perfect, but you can always strive for that kind of perfection. And someday that play will come along when maybe I'll get close to that, and I look forward to that day. In the meantime, I enjoy the challenge of trying to perfect it and get better at it, and I learn something after every broadcast that I do, and I chart them, and I grade them myself, and sometimes it's hard to listen to because I expect so much, but I do think that helps me as I try to get a little bit better every broadcast, and try to make sure that you're conveying exactly what's going on the field to that audience that doesn't have the benefit of watching it on TV. And if they say that theater of the mind is the most valuable, most potent emotion that we have, because when you imagine something, pro or con, good or bad, high or low, you're dealing with something that touches every fiber in your body. It touches your heart. It touches you physically. So if the words you can say on that broadcast, on any of our games on radio, can convey that picture in that listener's mind, then you'll have done your job. And that's the challenge. And I love that challenge. Even at my age, I want to get better and evolve. And that means that I still love the business. I love trying to get better at the business. I don't have all the answers, but trying to get better in something that you really enjoy is not a job. It is more of a love affair. And I've had that for many, many years with this company and doing that game and all these NFL games on Westwood One.
Yeah, find something that you're certainly passionate about. There's no doubt about it. Kevin, last one for me. Kind of off the cuff. We heard you recently on WSER in Chicago while you were in the Taco Bell drive-thru. I'm curious, when you make a run for the border, what is your go-to order? And most importantly, as Pat and I have debated before on this very show, true story, are you a sauce or no sauce guy? And if you are a sauce guy, what's your flavor of choice?
Mild sauce and a ton of it. I remember the very first time I ever went through a Taco Bell drive-through. I was about 12 or 13 years old. It was during the summer before we were big, but it was during training camp, and I was a ball boy for the Packers. And I went with Bart Starr Jr. and Steve Bratkowski, Zeke Bratkowski's son. Zeke Bratkowski was Bart Starr, his backup in Green Bay for all those championship years. And they were ball boys. They were the sons of those two legends, but they were older than me. They could drive. And I was sitting in the back seat, and they said, "Hey, let's go get some Taco Bell." And I go, "Taco Bell? What is Taco Bell?" And we drive through this Taco Bell and said, "What do you want?" And I said, I don't know, a taco. And they said, no, we're going to order you something. So they got me a bean burrito with beef. And ever since then, I have been a bean burrito with added ground beef in there. And every time I take a bite of it, honest to God, and I'm in my 60s now, I think of that first time I went through there with those two guys who I looked up to. They were Bart Starr Jr. was an incredible golfer, And Steve Brakowski was a great high school and then a college quarterback at Pitt and went to Arizona State. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Bart Jr. is still with us. But I remember that like it happened yesterday. And so when I go through the Taco Bell thing, I think of that going back some 40, 50 years ago.
Wow,
that's awesome.
that is awesome. I'm no sauce. By the way. Brad is like, he does like the Diablo, the ghost pepper sauce.
Diablo. Yeah, fire.
Out of his mind. Really quickly, Kevin, last one. Kevin Harlan with us here on BetMGM tonight. As a follow-up, what is Kevin Harlan's top 5 fast food or chain restaurants?
I like In-N-Out, Steak and Shake. I'm going to put Taco Bell in there because I go to it a lot. I like Jersey Mike's, and I've drawn a blank. I'll do those. I'll stick with those 4 for right now. I don't do it often, but when I do, those are the 4 that kind of are circling around in my very small mind and imagination.
That is awesome. That is tremendous. Kevin, thank you so much. Very gracious with your time. We really appreciate it, man. Have a good call tonight. You can catch it on Amazon. Lakers Clippers from the Intuit Dome. LeBron and Luka versus Kawhi. We'll see if Kawhi plays. But Kevin, thanks so much for joining us, man. And can't wait to chat with you soon.
Pat, Brad, thanks so much. Welcome to the family. You're a credit to the profession, and so fun to be with you guys tonight. Thank you very much.
There you go. The legend, Kevin Harlan. Bean burrito with beef and mild sauce.
Yeah.
That's Kevin Harlan's go-to
Lots
order.
of it.
Maybe we get the Harlan burrito. The Taco Bell they put the mild sauce in there, and you don't have to add the beef. It's just a beef and bean burrito. That would be something to look into trademarking for sure.